Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 1011 streaming studio. I am joined here by Jared Maneri from the Lincoln Police Department. Jared, how are you doing today?
Doing good.
Another part of your title is working with Lincoln Lancaster County Crime Stoppers.
Yes.
And you are here because we are starting a streaming segment about Crime Stoppers happening in Lincoln in Lancaster County. So,
Correct.
Are you ready to just jump into it?
Sure.
All right,
absolutely.
Let's talk about what is Crime Stoppers.
Well, obviously, you've probably heard of Crime Stoppers, maybe nationally, maybe even locally. But really, Crime Stoppers started as a program in Texas. And it was because some investigators had, I think it was a homicide, if I remember correctly, and they knew there was information out there, but they couldn't get anybody to come forward. And what they realized was that there are a lot of people that are in a situation where they just can't report something.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because they're too close to the situation, they know something, but it's someone in their family that might cause them harm, or maybe they're afraid of some kind of retaliation. So they really just decided that, hey, what can we do in order to kind of help those people give a tip to us without maybe putting themselves in harm's way? And so that's why Crime Stoppers was born. Really the entire purpose, a lot of people think Crime Stoppers, they think reward money, right? But really the entire purpose of Crime Stoppers is for anonymity, and it's just to protect people. There are a lot of people, and especially in Lincoln, we've seen that we get a lot of tips from people that just want to do the right thing. They just want to get that information to the cops. They're really not scared of retaliation. They will help us out in any way they can. But there are people that just are in a bad situation, and that anonymity is really important to them so that they can get us the information knowing we need it and knowing they want to make a difference, just wanting to protect themselves.
Yeah. You know, Jared, we pulled up some stats about Crime Stoppers and what you guys have done. So we're going to play that now. Excuse me. So we estimated Crime Stoppers has been going on in Lincoln for 36-ish years.
About 36 years, I believe.
About the math. In that time, over 11,000 cases have been cleared because of tips from Crime Stoppers. Over 9,000 arrests, over $333,000 in rewards approved. And I think this number is the most impressive, over $5 million in property recovered. So you can kind of see that. Would you say Crime Stoppers is working?
I would absolutely say that, and I would actually say a lot of times those numbers are going to be probably significantly lower than they really are, because a lot of times we don't always have the ability to get all the information packed into kind of a final report for Crime Stoppers. So sometimes we solve cases later that don't ever get tracked in the Crime Stoppers stats. So I'd say it might even be significantly higher.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about how important community involvement is? That's kind of why we talked about doing something like this.
Yes.
Maybe we're not hitting all of the people that need to see these videos that could help.
Absolutely. And that's kind of one of the problems you have with anything this day and age, it seems, is just kind of like, how do you reach people anymore? And so Crime Stoppers is doing the same thing. We're just trying to make sure that we can get out there, and in a way we're kind of advertising our product, which is basically, we have a crime we need solved. That's our product. And we're just trying to reach the right customer, the person that has the information, to give us the tip to solve that crime. So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but really, if it wasn't for our local media contacts and just the support we've got from our local civilian population, this program wouldn't be near as successful as it is. I will say that when we do stats at the end of the year, sometimes we just have to run stats, right? But we'll actually go back and we'll look at every single post we've done on our Crime Stoppers website, and we'll go through and we'll decide, hey, how was this solved? Did we solve it? And then, was it solved by a Crime Stoppers tip, or was it maybe something that came in from someone else? And in the end, we're solving about 40% of those cases that get posted to our website, which, I mean, to some people may not seem like a huge number, but really when you're talking law enforcement, a 20% clearance rate is massive. That's like considered like a high percentage to have 20% of your cases cleared.
Then 40% must.
Exactly. And obviously this is a little bit different just because we actually have pictures in these cases, right? Whereas a lot of these cases that go unsolved, it's because we don't have enough evidence. So we have an advantage right off the bat with Crime Stoppers because there's pictures. But really, if it wasn't for the people in our community calling, texting, sending in our tips through our website, if it wasn't for those tips, we wouldn't be solving those cases. Because a lot of times officers, basically, they take the report, they look at it, they go, I don't know who this person is. They show it to one of their beat buddies. Hey, do you know who this person is? Nope. And back in the past, that would have been it. Yeah. But now that we have our website, and we have the media that's helping us push this stuff, and we have an active civilian population that's giving us tips. We're clearing cases like we haven't ever cleared before.
Yeah. Should we take a look at some of those cases
Sure.
that we've got on the docket for today? So the first one is a smash and grab. I'm going to cue up that video. Talk to us about what you're seeing in this video.
So in this case, this is a female, and she basically goes to a bank, and she's trying to cash in a couple checks. We also had these males. They were at the Walmart, and they're trying to basically use some stolen credit cards. What ended up happening was the owner of a vehicle, she's parked at a daycare kind of north of 27th and Old Cheney. Somebody breaks into there, and they steal the contents from it. And this is actually a vehicle that we think that was involved with this female here. So we're just looking for information on that one. But
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. So basically, in the end, they break out the window of the car and steal the contents out of the car. Pretty common story. You hear it a lot. And then they just literally just go right down to that Walmart at 27th and Jamie Lane, just south of there. And that's when the males try to use the credit cards. The female was actually trying to cash checks about 7 days later. So they still had all of that stuff almost a week later.
Okay.
So this is over time that this case kind of has evolved into multiple frauds.
Okay, I wasn't sure about the separation. So you've got a lot of good photo evidence. It's a
Yes.
very clear picture.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what it took to gather all of the evidence.
Sure.
And is that the case for a lot of Crime Stopper cases?
It really depends on the case where it goes. A lot of times we'll post stuff and we'll get all kinds of content from people seeing it, saying, hey, did you do this? Did you do this? A lot of times we do it. You just don't know it. People will like, hey, did you run this plate? We saw a plate on the car. Well, yeah, we did run the plate, and it just was kind of a dead end for some reason, right? But in this case, obviously, we have to go back out to Walmart. We have to say, hey, we had this transaction. They go through the whole process with Walmart of trying to figure out what transaction it is, where it is in their records, what time it happens, getting the video from the Walmart store. And then once that's done, that comes back to our ID unit. And we go through that video and try to get the best images we can of people. And then that's what gets posted on our Crime Stoppers website.
Okay. So if somebody knows these people, let's rewind actually. Let's talk about the smash and grab.
Sure.
The smash and grab happened at a daycare.
Yes.
This is not the first time we've heard of something like this happening at a daycare too.
Correct.
Talk about that.
We have smash and grabs that happen during the daytime. A lot of times what you're used to seeing is like at night. But we have had people that will go into a parking lot. I've seen some pretty brazen people. They'll pull up in their car, they'll pull up next to a car, they'll kind of get out, they'll look in the windows, see if there's anything of value. If there is, that they might break the window out, they might try to pry the lock on the door. It really just kind of depends on the person and how they're, I don't want to say trained, but kind of how they've developed their own way of getting into those cars. And we'll see trends where, like we've had some cases where we have one person that's hitting a whole bunch of them all at once. And like the one I'm thinking of in particular, he's in jail right now. We actually ended up solving that one. But it kind of goes in waves. Like you'll get one group that just kind of will start doing one thing because that's what works for them until something happens and they have to change. So in this kind of case, we don't know if they're local. We think there's a possibility they may not be local just because that picture of that female is so good. We're kind of surprised we haven't gotten a great tip on her yet.
Yeah.
So we're wondering if maybe they're traveling. We don't know if that means like a local travel, like from another city near us or from another state even. But we're hoping that if we get it out there, somebody can give us a good tip on this.
Yeah, let's talk about giving tips. So if anybody recognizes any of the people in these pictures, what can they do?
There's many ways to do it. Obviously, you can call the police department. You can call the 441-6000, which is our non-emergency line, and speak to the officer involved in that. And if you just tell them what the case number is, they should be able to get you to that officer. You can just leave your tip with them when you call in if you want to do that as well, if you don't want to talk to the officer specifically. Obviously, Crime Stoppers is another way of going. If you want a reward, the only way you can get a reward is to go through Crime Stoppers. So if you make that report to the officer, you're not going to be eligible because we have your information. And the whole point of Crime Stoppers is to keep you anonymous. And once that anonymity is gone, then the reward is gone as well. So that's important just to kind of put out there. Obviously, you can go to LincolnCrimeStoppers.com. You can see all the cases we're going for. On there are some links to follow. You can always call 475-3600, and that is the phone number for Crime Stoppers Direct. And you'll be talking to a call center, and they will kind of walk you through the process of reporting that tip.
Okay. And you guys also have a star number, don't you? We were just testing this out last week. Tell me about that.
We're starting it. We're working on it. Basically, this is a national number. It's star tips, TIPS. And the idea is that no matter where you are in the nation, you should be able to make a call to Crime Stoppers. So that way, say you go on vacation, you're in California, right? You see something that happens and you want to call Crime Stoppers, but you're not where you usually are, you don't know the normal number, you would just call the same number and you'd say what county, what state you're in, and then that would go to whatever Crime Stoppers organization is in that area. So even if somebody's just visiting Lincoln, something happens in front of them, they call star tips. They say I'm in Lincoln, Lancaster County. It would go to our program so that we could get that information to the Lincoln Police or the Sheriff's Office here.
Yeah, lots of options to report anonymously. Should we move on to our target haul?
Absolutely.
All right, let's cue that one up. Let me find my mouse. Talk to me what you're seeing in this video. Let me pull it up.
So this is a female. She goes into Target in Southwest Lincoln on the Super Target at 40th and Yankee Hill. Basically, she just loads up on a whole bunch of stuff. She takes that out to the car at the end of the day. But what she ends up taking is a very large amount of stuff. She's in the store for almost an hour packing it into her cart. She gets a bunch of Legos, some clothing, a bunch of cosmetics. I think she stole some headphones, some queen-size bedding, and some basic kitchen appliances. I don't know if it's because she needs it or if she's planning to resell these items, but she just pushes the entire cart out the door. She takes it all to that dark-colored SUV you saw in the picture there and just drives off. So we're looking at, it looks like it's just under the felony status level for theft. Depending on how much she took, if we find out more, she might actually get up into that felony level. But we would just like to get a good tip on who she is and maybe the vehicle involved in this, because unfortunately the pictures aren't great of that vehicle.
That's what I was going to say. None of these pictures are as clear as the last one. What do you do in that instance?
It kind of varies. A lot of people see CSI-TV and they think, oh, they're going to zoom in and enhance and make it amazing, right? A lot of times with video, what you see is what you get. There are some things we can do forensically to kind of clean up an image, and sometimes miracles happen, but for the most part, what you see in those cameras is what you're going to get. In this case, that camera was a long ways away from that car.
Okay.
So if that car was closer to the camera, we might have got a lot better video, but because it was so far away, it just kind of is kind of a muddy picture of that vehicle.
And do we know how much, like the total of what she took?
I think it was just under $1,400.
Okay.
So technically, $1,500 is when it jumps up into the felony level.
Okay.
So I don't know if she's really good at doing math and maybe kept it under that level, or just so happened to be there, or maybe that's all that Target could prove at that time that they believe she took.
Yeah.
And she may have gone over, like I said, once we find out more.
And this one occurred at the end of April.
Yes.
Okay, so it's more recent.
Yes.
So again, if somebody knows her, they can reach out, and they can reach out to you in a variety of ways. They can call the 6000 number. They can make an anonymous tip. Is there a reward for this, either of these?
So basically in these cases, what happens is when you call in, you give a tip, it's really going to boil down to a bunch of different things on how much of a reward you can get. It's based on the crime. So if it's a misdemeanor or a felony, there's different values for it. It also varies on who's the first person to call in. And it seems kind of weird that it's a race, but really we're looking for information, and the first person to give us that information is going to be the one most eligible for the tip.
Okay.
However, if you call in, you say this is Joe, but then somebody calls in after you and says it's Joe, but he also works here. You know, he has a warrant out of another state. Here's where he stays at night. Then maybe they give me more information. There might actually be two rewards for that same case because the second tip gave us more valuable information as well.
Okay, and let's talk about anonymous reporting. How can somebody be sure that what they say to police is anonymous? I know there can sometimes be some fear with reporting.
Of course.
You might be afraid to say something to somebody.
So that's the whole point of Crime Stoppers. The organization works really hard to make sure that when you give a tip, all of the information that comes to the police department is kept anonymous. And what I mean by that is, let's say you call in and it's your ex-boyfriend, right, that does this, and you were to tell the call taker, when you call in, you say, yeah, my ex-boyfriend is the guy in this, and he's late on my child support payments, and you give all kinds of personal information. Well, that person is not going to write any of that down. They're just going to say the name of the person, maybe some basic information about what is important for the case, but they're going to leave all of that personal information out. And that helps to protect you, obviously. What happens is that call taker basically puts it into a form. That form comes back to the police department. It's forwarded to us at the police department, and then it's forwarded on to whatever officer works that area. So let's say the original officer that took the call, that tip would go to that officer. That officer then gets this tip that's been sanitized that just says, it's Joe Blow that did this, and then they go and work the case. Depending on the information that's given, they may come back and say that was a good tip, or they may say it was really not a good tip, it was worthless. If it's a good tip, they can recommend we get more reward for that case based on the information in it. So it's really kind of a fluid thing about how much money is for each tip. Obviously, we go up to $1,000 in Lincoln, and that's like for maybe a homicide or a felony case.
Okay.
So it's all kind of in that range of $0 to $1,000.
And what if investigators have a question about your tip?
You know, it's nice if we can communicate with them. You can, in the app, there's ability to have a back and forth talk. And again, we're going to go back to anonymity. How do we do that? Well, that's part of the algorithm is it actually, if I remember right, it goes up to Canada and gets washed and then comes back to the United States.
Oh.
And that helps protect the information as well.
Okay.
So we're able to, through this app, communicate with you anonymously. We'll never see that. We can't, like, you know, whatever, dial on your phone *67 to get the number, any of that kind of stuff. It just, it's not there. It's not available for us.
Okay.
So really, if we can continue to talk to you through that app, it's really great because then maybe we could ask you follow-up questions. So if you are using the app to give information in the P3 app, that might be something you want to check back and forth now and then, just to see if we're asking further follow-up questions.
Okay. Jared, do you think I'm missing anything about those two cases that we ran today? I can pull them up and we can
No,
walk
I
through
think
them
we're doing
again?
good.
You think we're good? Okay, again, this will be a weekly streaming segment, so you can tune in on Wednesdays and catch us here for more Crime Stoppers information. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.